Our speaker this morning is Dr. Jude LaClaire. Jude has been with us several different times. I know that I have always enjoyed what she's had to say before. And I'm going to do a quick, brief intro for those of you who don't know her. She's got over 50 years of experience as a mental health counselor, author, and educator. She published the Life Weaving Education Curriculum, which is a holistic problem-solving curriculum. And she also writes a monthly mental health article for Evolving Magazine, which I would like to know where we find one of those. I haven't seen one in a while. Okay. She still enjoys working as a counselor and being active in social justice action. And please help me welcome Dr. Jude LaClaire.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. And it is a lovely morning, a little chilly, but it's very nice out. Yes, the Evolving Magazine, if you go to evolvingkc.com, it's online. You can find the current art. Actually, my current article is called Roots and Wings because it's a topic I've done. So it's a condensation of what we're talking about today. But I do write that monthly article. Just do evolvingkc.com or evolving.com, and you can get on their list. They'll send you a little update and give you the issue every month. You can go online and you can see past articles. I've been writing for them for, oh gosh, since about, I don't know, 15 years, since their inception. So I've been writing a monthly mental health article. So yeah, it's very easy to get to, and then get on their mailing list, and then they'll send you each month. She sends you the issue. Okay, yeah, Jill Dutton. Some of you may know Jill. She's been around quite a while. She herself is a writer. Yes. Well, good morning. When I thought of this topic actually, I always have to think about what my monthly article is. I thought, Roots and Wings. And so I'm going, did I write an article about this? And then it dawned on me, it's like, look at your my curriculum that I've written. Well, the whole first 30 pages of my curriculum, the introduction, is about roots and wings. So that is actually, I wrote it 30 years ago. It's really the underpinning of kind of I guess I would call it how we can have a holistic approach to life. I call it to problem solving, but problem solving is just a way of looking at everything we meet every day. All right. So this is the curriculum that I wrote was kind of I've been practicing about 25 years. It came out, wrote it in 96. It was published, I think, in 96 to 97. And by the way, I have copies of it. I have physical copies, which I am giving to people. I'm in the process of trying to get it digitalized and put online. It's about 486 pages. It's a 5-book series, and it's got about 11 guided imageries in it. And it takes you through some of the things we're going to talk about today. It was written as an elementary school curriculum. So it's got lots of resources, lots of activities, lots of wonderful little children's books, some that aren't children's books, and I think a lot of good information. But anyway, that's what this is from, by the way. And if anybody wants them, I'm giving them. I'd like to get rid of really all my actual copies, my physical copies. So I'm happy to give it to you, most happy to give it to anyone that wants it. So just let me know, and we can, you can call me and we can figure out I can bring them maybe sometime, some of them, so that you could give them to people. I'm very happy to give them to people. So as I think about this, and I think this is still very true today, in fact, maybe even more so, is that when we're looking at our society and our individual lives, I think what we really see, and it's always resonated with me, and I don't remember when I first saw it, there's not agreement on where it's from. It's when in doubt, I just say it's probably an African proverb. But the quote is, there are only 2 lasting bequests we give our children. One is roots, the other is wings. So I'm a person, I'm sure some of you are too. It's like, well, would be roots and wings. So the actual definition, and you think about the metaphor of roots, the part of a plant usually below the ground that lacks nodes, shoots, and leaves, holds the plant in position, draws water and nourishment from the soil, and stores food. So if you think, you know, I think that the tree is really the metaphor in almost every tradition in, you know, through history, as a metaphor of life, so that we have part of our being rooted in the ground, the earth, but that sense of being held in position, getting water and nourishment, storing food. The other thing, it's the source, origin, or cause of an action, quality, or condition. So it's like within ourselves, within our society. Okay, it also is a person or family that has many descendants or ancestors. So it's also your connections with your actual biological family, but also just the ancestors, if we will, right? Of all peoples, really. The other one is, it says the close ties one has with some place or people, as through birth, upbringing, long and sympathetic association. So again, thinking about your connectedness with people, with places, right? Uh, so it's basically, you think about the metaphor of roots, it has lots of meanings, doesn't it? For us to think about. And what about wings? So the word wings actually in Old English is feather. So in art and mythology, it's sometimes attributed to gods and angels and demons, dragons, or a symbol of speed. Anything you think about it, it represents something flying or soaring or carrying one to soaring heights of rapture or joy. Okay. So it's also like to cause or fly or speed, to pass through or over as if by flying, to take wing, to take flight, to become joyous, jubilant, or enraptured. So if you think about roots and wings, it's really what I think of in our language is that you're really accessing and utilizing inner and outer resources in the continuum of consciousness. So your internal environment, your external environment, your personal and collective environment. Okay. So it's like when we think about having a problem, we all, nothing I'm going to say today to you probably is anything particularly new. What I hope is that it's a reminder for you, for me. Just, I was telling some of the people that first tuned in, my spouse had a knee replacement Thursday. So we've been in the throes of recovery, and you know, she's got a walker right now. So I'm taking care of the dogs, the cats, and her. And it's been a little bit overwhelming, as those of you know, and been through many things, yourselves personally, or your spouses, or your children, or your friends. Um, you worry because they're going through something hard, right? You're concerned, you're stressed, they're stressed. And so I've had to say to myself multiple times a day, breathe, just like we did at the beginning of the session. Take a breath. My whole body is feeling warm and heavy and relaxed. My body is giving into gravity. I can call in all the help I need. And as I was preparing for this, I thought, wow, this is a good reminder, Jude, as you're going through this, remember what you know. Because when we're under stress, what do? We forget what we know, right? So sometimes somebody says to remind us, hey, you know this, right? So I think the idea of roots and wings, connecting to the earth, you know, you think about Mother Earth, Father Sky, and the tree, you know, connecting to both roots and wings, and using both of those. So think of it as the inner and outer resources in the continuum of consciousness. Okay. So what I do think we need to pay attention to is what happens to those connections or lack of connection, that we have what I would call the wound of disconnection. And I think in this society in particular, we can see, for example, the wound of disconnection from nature. from our outer world, from trees, from plants, from, the ground. We're surrounded by cement and asphalt and cars and, and buildings and tall buildings. And so, we know, some of you know this, I mean, again, it's nothing new, that being out in nature is calming. It changes your brain. Taking a walk, I've written about that as well. And there's all kinds of research to show how taking even a 20-minute walk twice a day changes your anxiety. It changes depression. It's good for your heart. It's good for your eyes. It's good for cognitive development. It's good for almost everything. Okay, just getting out into nature, even if it's a cloudy day, you get some sun, the act of walking does something to your visual field that helps your cognitive functioning. Okay, so even a treadmill is great, but you're not getting that on a treadmill. So it's like just the act of taking a walk, right? Going, that resource of the outer world, nature, place, thinking about places. We all, as of certain ages, we have lots of connections with place. Native Americans talk a lot about, indigenous people, the sacredness of place. We've kind of lost connection with that. I was kind of really very moved. I saw a documentary that's, I think, on HBO, but it was 2021 that a park ranger found footprints in New Mexico, the White Sands place. You probably have heard about that, some of you. And so then he called in a footprint expert, called in archaeologists. They've been doing digs on it since then. And I think as of last year, some of you may know this, we now know absolutely scientifically that people were in that area 26,000 years ago. And we also have digs in Mexico, Chile, Central South America, as well as the southwest of this country, that shows that people have been here for over 20,000 years. Well, and so one of the things they did, which really was heartening to me, and it's a lot about this theme I'm talking about here today, that the indigenous, the ancestors, the roots, like the Navajo elders were called to the site to do a ceremony as they were digging into and taking out some of the remains and some of the artifacts. And I thought, here you have Western science and the indigenous community coming together. And I thought, wow, that really kind of talks about our point today, isn't it? That coming together of the ancestors, the roots, the deepest roots, right? Jung talked about the collective unconscious. You have your personal unconscious, your personal experiences, but what about the collective experiences of all humankind and really all life, right? Okay, so we can connect to that. And so I think indigenous folks really understand the connection with the ancestors. Okay, all right, is that making sense to you? So I think that was very moving to me. So I think we've all gotten disconnected a lot. Many of us have, a lot of us, have moved, family moves away, siblings move away, children move away. It's like we've become disconnected from people. I think COVID really kind of highlighted some of our disconnection. And I think one thing that's positive, that there's some positive things that come out of that. And one is that people, I think, are reminded of all ages, we need each other. We need each other. We need that connection, that personal connection with people. They've done research on the, I always like, I'm an avid reader, as many of you are. And it's like, even like, let's say you go out and you go to the grocery store, or you take a walk and you see the neighbor, or you whatever you're doing in your travels, you're going to the bank, whatever, that when you're talking, you say hi to people, good morning, how are you? Those kinds of things, you would think that's no big deal. It is a big deal. That changes your brain in a positive way. So I've been making really great efforts to make sure not to be annoying, But you know, just as people come in and out of my building, or as I see them, I say, you know, good morning, have a good day, you know. And if people hold the door for me, I say, thank you so much. You know, and it's like sometimes people are in their little thing and they look at you and they smile and it's like, oh, they felt good, right? So I think just even those small connections of connection, right, with strangers, okay, the connections with nature, the connections, you know, so many times I hear people, you know, say, well, I don't talk to anybody around, you know, we have people that are isolated. Young people feel every, you know, this, I know you know this, every single generation from youth to elderly people report the same problem. You know what it is? Loneliness. So what does that tell you? The injury, the wound of disconnection. And it's like, well, there's people everywhere. So come on, folks, get with the program. You're really living amongst people, you're living in nature. So let's just open our eyes and reconnect. It's so easy to get, isn't it? To get in your little shell, or to get in your little world, or to feel unloved, or to feel disconnected, right? So this is about checking connections, right? Are my feet on the ground? Okay. My feet should be on the ground. You know, I was reading an article that kind of reinforced this man who's a very big parenting editor for many, many years. He said, if there's anything we've confirmed over and over in the research literature is that children thrive when they have warmth and structure. As children grow in security and maturity, they are more aware, more aware of more than themselves, embracing the other as part of their reality. So giving, I mean, starting, you know that children like, babies like swaddling. Okay. Some people like heavy blankets and they have these weighted blankets. Why? Because it makes people feel secure. And just even if you're 80 or 50 or 60, doesn't mean you don't need that. Okay. Right? So, how do you feel secure? How do you feel connected? Right? And so I think, how do we do that? And do we allow ourselves to do the other part, which is the wings, right? So going into your sense of your dreams, your daydreams, you know, that sort of thing. You know, I've thought a lot about, you know, when you look at various traditions and you think, wow, people have languages, they have food. I'm going, wow, I have no cultural tradition that I could say, oh, this is my tradition. These are my foods. This is some place. I don't, songs, music, nothing. I don't really have. So the only thing I could think of, which is really true for me, is that I was raised in a Catholic tradition, immersed from birth to actually after I left the convent. I really never knew a non-Catholic. Okay. So I went to Catholic grade in high school. Uh, we had neighbors that were not Catholics, but we weren't close to them. I wasn't close to any children. I didn't meet anybody really as a friend that was not a Catholic until I was over 29 years old. So I guess I could say that I'm culturally Catholic, right? But I don't have. I'm a 57 or 58% French, but I don't really have any cultural connection to French culture, language, foods, etc. Nothing. Okay. So I don't know. You may ask yourself, some of you may have that. I don't. Okay. Because again, the first disconnection for most of us is that our ancestors left their countries of origin, some not by their own choice, as we know, slavery, and the indigenous people who were forced from their own places, right? Except for a couple of tribes, all were moved. So we have early on in the last 300 years, everybody's disconnected, right? In some way or another. And so how do we reestablish? You think about, you know, if a tree's roots are damaged or a plant, what happens to it? It often, sometimes it will will regrow, but sometimes it doesn't. It dies. So I would just like for you to think about, what are my roots? What do I connect with? What do I do? Right? so that I can connect with, right? For me, I think I think in the feminist movement, I got a lot of my sense of identity as a woman, as a female. I have people who are transgender or non-binary, so they're trying to find their own sense of identification. When I came out as a lesbian, what was I looking for? Other lesbians so I could have an identity group, right? Now, of course, I don't really care, and most of my friends aren't gay, but I needed that at one time, right? So I have a history of that music and the concerts and the literature and so on. But that's part of me. So as we grow and change, you could ask yourself, how many identities do you have? How many identities have you had to develop for yourself as you move along in your life? And how connected or disconnected are you from those? Okay. And what do they give you or not give you? So I would just say, I think it's a question that we want to say is that we want to say, okay, what actually have I been connected with and what am I disconnected from that I might reconnect with? Okay. So two people really have been, well, there's a lot more than that, but initially when I was writing this curriculum, two worldviews, if you will, informed me that what might seem disparate, but they address exactly these two things. First was Carl Jung. So Carl Jung, I have in my office, somebody gave me this, it's kind of a joke. I have an action figure of Carl Jung. So he inspires me. So I look at my action figure of Carl Jung, and because he really understood the transcendent function, he really understood the transformation of people by going into the unconscious and transforming it and bringing it to consciousness so we could do something with it. So here is his definition of individuation, which you're familiar with that term, I'm sure. The whole person, I'm going to say person, he says man, is an individual, but is not individualistic, which means ego-centered, and is often used as an excuse to develop peculiarities at the expense of other people or to behave in an egotistical fashion. Well, that's true today, isn't it? The individuated person, on the other hand, through their acceptance of the unconscious, has, while remaining aware of their unique personality, realized their connection with all living beings, even with inorganic matter and the cosmos itself. So, he was writing this in the late 1800s, early 1900s, which I think is pretty awesome, that he came to this truth about life. So it's like that ability to accept and connect with that continuum of consciousness, dreams, imagery, and memory states to that conscious, rational, waking state and bringing the unconscious into consciousness. And what he said, when you do that, you have choice. If it's in the unconscious, it's kind of pushing you around. But if you bring it up to consciousness, then you have a choice. What are you going to do with it, right? So your memories, people say, oh, well, I had such a good childhood. It's like, well, I don't remember anything before I was 10. And I'm going, well, the most important influence, you know where it is, 0 to 7. That's when we're totally limbic brain. That's when our total influence is coming from, more or less, is from 0 to 7. We only usually start having memories around 3, maybe 4. Okay. So we don't remember it. So all that's in the unconscious. Okay. So our job is to bring it to consciousness so that we can make decisions about what that is, right? That's our healthy development maturation. And rupturing any of these connections interrupts that individuation process and results really in us being kind of unhealthy. And when he was, Jung was very much of a spiritual man, but he was really about bringing it together. Okay, he was really a master of what we're talking about today. The other person that's been very influential for me, because I've always been, as some of you are too, into relationships. And Murray Bowen Some of you may know who he is, but the Bowen theory is, he did a lot of intergenerational family studies for over 50 years. He started at Menninger's, by the way, and then went to Georgetown in Maryland. Um, and he's deceased now, of course. But he talked a lot about the individual and our family of origin. And some of you may or may not know this. His research, his 50 years of research in intergenerational family systems, and now the neuroscientists tell us we're influenced by 5 to 7 generations that precede us. 5 to 7 generations. And I do what's called a genogram, which is a family chart for every person that comes into my thing. No one hardly knows beyond 2 generations. And some are fuzzy on that. If you've ever watched Finding Your Roots on PBS, if you haven't watched it, watch it. How are almost every guest, how are they impacted by finding out about their ancestors? They're deeply moved. They're transformed. They'll say, this has changed my life. There are tears, there are shouts, they're just like, oh, secrets come out. It's just, and they do a deep dive for these folks. Well, you don't have to know the information because it's stored in your DNA. So if you pay attention to your body, if you think about your body keeps the score, Bessel van der Kolk, everything we've experienced is in every cell and molecule of your body. Your body knows it. Your brain might not actually remember it very well, but your body remembers it. Okay. So some of you know of Bessel van der Kolk, who does trauma. The Body Keeps the Score. Excellent book. Okay. So I think we want to think about this. So what did Murray Bowen said? He used the idea of differentiation of self because he was thinking more about relationships. So he said complete differentiation exists in a person who has fully resolved the emotional attachment to their family. They have attained complete emotional maturity in the sense that the self is developed sufficiently that whenever it is important to do so, they can be an individual in the group. They are responsible for themselves and neither foster nor participate in the irresponsibility of others. That's a big statement, isn't it? So that sense, how do you connect with other people? And so he thought about in families, you have the 2 extremes, what he called cutoff, emotional cutoff, which some of you may have in your families where people just go. They don't want to talk to anybody, they don't do anything, they just cut off. Of course, we know that's not healthy, right? Then you have the other version, this enmeshment. I don't know where you stop and I start. We're like, we're connected, so too connected. We haven't gotten our own differentiation. So I think between cutoff and enmeshment, the idea is that there's a healthy in between where we connect and move out. We can come together and move back. There's a dance, right, of connection and individuation, that process of differentiation. So Edwin Friedman, who is a Bowen practitioner, gave these characteristics of this clearly differentiated person. That one, they have a healthy sense of self. I'm still working on that, by the way. Has personal goals, and we need to keep changing those, I think, as we age. Has consistency, stamina, capable of staying with the task. Has awareness of sabotage. We all have the inner saboteur, alive and well, right? Has capacity for maturity, ability to regulate the self in the absence of the regulation of others. So I think that in today's society, one of the reasons I wrote this curriculum is that I believe that the freer the society, the more need there is for us to develop the skill of self-regulation. And if you think about younger generations, my generation probably didn't, it wasn't self-regulation as much as it was self-suppression. which wasn't very healthy. So it's a little bit different. So I had to learn, instead of just repressing or sitting on something or not even recognizing it, I need to recognize it and learn how to regulate it. But younger generations have learned to express it, but they think that if they express it, then everybody should change. It should change things and change how people do things. Well, it doesn't, because I say how I feel does not mean anybody's going to change anything. So we have to think about not only ourselves and our own self-regulation, and the freer the society, the more we need to have the skill of self-regulation, which means we need to teach our children these roots and wings: security, safety, warmth, so that they find out who they are, but also teaching them independence, teaching them to use their brains, their imagery, that they use that wings, and that we do both. And that we have to continue to remind ourselves of that, right? When you're not doing so well, like, okay, what am I missing? Did I forget to do my physical exercise? Did I forget to meditate? Am I really honoring that continuum of consciousness for my own health? Does that make sense? Okay. So I think that what I've done in this process is think about what are some of the resources that we have. And I'm going to be kind of general today because we don't have time for the whole thing. But I think I learned this from doing therapy with people for 25 years. Now I'm up to 50. But here's what I feel like. Oh, what saved people who are in real traumatic situations? Well, one is the resource of place. So some people said, I'd go climb trees. I'd walk in the woods. I just sat by this pond we had. They connected in some ways with place, safe place in their bedroom. They hid under their beds. But it was finding their place, right? The other thing I found is that people connected with some aspect of nature. I had clients who I would say that did horseback riding, and that saved their lives. They had trauma, sexual abuse, a dog, a cat, that some animal really literally saved their lives in a traumatic situation. Okay. Um, then I would say that ancestors, like thinking about the connections, a lot of people talk about, traditions, right? That help them, or thinking about, I think a lot of the mythical things are really kind of gifts of the ancestors. And if you think about the current ones like Star Trek, or, some of the ones today, um, Harry Potter, those are really kind of a take on the ancestors, aren't they? The spirits and energies of the universe. So we have modern mythologies that kind of tell us about the ancestors, right? That's really important. And I think that there's a group called Sweet Honey in the Rock. I think we've talked about them before, but they are a wonderful group if you haven't heard them. And they have this song called Breaths. Those who have died have never, never left. And then it talks about where they are. They're in the wailing wind, they're in the waving trees, they're in the cry of the child. That the ancestors are present in all the elements of nature, in animals, and in connections with other people. That's how maybe the ancestors speak to us, right? So I'm kind of glad that I think I can call on ancestors of all traditions, okay, that they're there for me. I mean, a lot of guided imageries and some of the work that I've done where I go, you take more of the deep dive inside. I have imagined myself connecting with people from other cultures and other times, and it's been very nourishing and helpful. Maybe some of you have had that too. And then sometimes they just spontaneously come. And sometimes when we see a program or read a story, it's like, wow, it just resonates with us, right? Because we feel that sense of connection with that person, with their experience, even though we weren't in that culture, we didn't live at that time, right? So I think that the ancestors, and then if you think about family and extended family, so many times like people that had very traumatic situations, maybe they had a grandparent, maybe they only saw that grandparent a week or two of the year, but somehow that was the anchor for them. or an aunt or uncle, or a neighbor, or a person at their church, or a parent of a friend, that they found this family, extended family community connection, right? Where they found, I don't hardly know anybody, and I work a lot with trauma, who hasn't at least didn't have one or two people they could say, and I try to help them identify who those are. Oh, my third grade teacher. She told me I was such a good student. She really got me interested in reading about whatever. She brought me lunch. So who was there for you? Family, extended family, community, right? As you grew up, but also now. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like these are then and now, right? That we all have those. So it's like when you think about resources, you go, I don't have anybody. Well, yes, you do. I always tell people, I say this a little bit facetiously, but I believe it's true. I never go into a counseling session alone. I have a whole bag of all these other beings are here with me, informing me. Okay. Because I would be foolish if I thought I could do that by myself. I can't. I can't do it. Okay. Some people think about it as God or angels or saints. However, we think about it. Okay. Those resources that are always available to you 24/7, never go away. Okay. I know you know this, but we forget, don't we?
Mhm.
We're in the throes of what we're in. We go, oh, I don't have any, I don't have anything. Oh my God. Okay. So I think that we know that our dreams and our imagery, we know things like writing, we know the universal symbols, and we often get through those through writing or art or music or dance or movement of some kind, right? So is this ringing any bells for you?
Mhm.
Thinking about, right, all the resources that you have in the continuum of consciousness as you think about whatever your situation. Believe me, I've been thinking a lot about this the last couple of weeks as Leslie prepares for her surgery. It's been, this time of year seems to be rough on people, so everybody's having emergencies. Uh, and so it's like I've been a little bit overwhelmed. So what do I have to do? Jude, remember what you know how to do. Remember to call on all your resources. You're not in this alone. Okay. So I just think that we have to think, okay, what is this? What are these things, all these beings that we have, all the, as we might call it, that are depicted in art and mythology for millennia as gods, angels, demons, dragons. So it's like that, all that's available for us, right? However you conceive of the ancestors. I was seeing an African American woman. She calls herself African American, by the way. I know young people want to be called blacks, but she said what she's done a lot of traveling. She said when I was in Egypt and and she said I had this overwhelming. And this is not a person who's very emotional. She's pretty holds it tight. She said I had this overwhelming experience of connection with the ancestors. And she said it was very meaningful and overwhelming and just so unexpected. But we never know when we might have those experiences of connectedness. I'm sure you've been in places or read a book or watched something or been in the middle of a conversation or, just out in the woods or out by the, and here comes this connection, right? So just be open. Be open to what will come into you. One of the things that I learned as I moved through uh, uh, my work with people and myself is that, and I learned dream work, that one of the things that I learned was two things that directives they would give to their children as they worked on their dreams or their nightmares. That they would say, you can call on whatever help you want as they help the child move through it. So you have whatever help you need, and you can take whatever time you need. So think about yourself in the middle of a trying situation. Take a breath And you don't have to believe it. Just say, I can call on whatever help I need. All the help I need is available. So you think about all those things I just mentioned to you, all those resources. Okay, and I have all the time I need. So get out of the time capsule, take yourself into timelessness. You don't have to believe it. When you say that, if you say that to yourself right now, I have all the time I need. What does that do to your body? Your body just goes, oh, relax. I have all the time I need. Okay. Again, you don't have to believe something for your brain to take it in. Okay. So I think these are some of the ways that we do this reconnection. Okay. And I don't want to watch the time here, so I don't want to get too off the track here. So what I'm going to say is that there was a story that I read some years ago. One of the people on my committee was Native American, and she had a book of Native American stories. And there's a story about a story called "Who Speaks for Wolf." So it was a Native American and indigenous tribe, and this tribe of people uh, were living fairly happily in the area where they were, and there amongst their people there was a young boy who actually noticed the wolf and the singing of the wolf and singing the song of the moon and how the earth was a good place to be and so on. And the little boy became kind of like connected with Wolf, so much so that they called him Wolf's brother. And he was encouraged by his grandfather to do this, the shaman. Anyway, and the people found that where they were living, they were having a scarcity of food, and they had to think about moving. And so the council comes together and they decide to move. But the place they wanted to move was also where Wolf and the Wolf brothers and sisters lived. They said, well, that's okay. We'll feed them or do whatever we need to do. We need to go to that place. So they end up deciding that they would go to that place. Well, they get there and the wolf starts grabbing their food where they'd be hanging it up or putting it out, terrorizing their children, grabbing the food, doing things. And they're going, oh, what are we going to do? We can't just kill the wolves. There's too many of them. And they have to reconvene. And they decide that they came to the conclusion that they could not live in Wolf's place. And this is what that they had to figure out. They said, to do what they wanted to do will require more work than the change would presently require. And I love that statement. It will require more work to stay where you are, to do what you think you want to do without thinking of all these other things than the change would presently require. So doing this now, whatever you need to do, right? And so they decided again they'd have to move, and they came to the decision that they said, because they came to the realization that they could not override the wolf and the needs of the wolf. And they said, so they always, every time they had to make a decision of anything, they would say, the question was, who speaks for Wolf? So you think about when you're trying to face a challenge, a problem, make a decision, overcome a difficulty, what part of yours, who's Wolf? What part of you are you ignoring? What part of this whole amazing array of resources are you ignoring to your own demise? Okay. So the question is, who speaks for Wolf? What is your connection, right? So I think that when we're doing this, we know that we need to absolutely connect with our roots, connect with our wings, all right? That capacity to move. And what I'm going to say here. So what I'm going to ask you to think about One of the ways that I kind of incorporate this into our thinking, one of the first imageries that I developed was the tree imagery. So I think for our meditation today, I'm going to do a part of the tree imagery with you, okay? To kind of connect with your roots and wings, that we're gonna have a little imagery with the tree. So if you just kind of take a nice deep breath, close your eyes, sitting comfortably in a position that supports your back, have a clear pathway for breath. Just exhale, inhale, as we say, easily. Exhale slowly, very, very slowly, letting the breath go out easily. And just continue to breathe slowly and evenly, feeling the rhythm of your breathing. Maybe feeling like a wave coming in and slowly, slowly returning to the ocean. And just imagine you're going to take a journey. Imagine you're on a path. Feel the stones, the earth, the path under your feet. And you're curious to know where the path will take you. And you follow it and find yourself approaching a tree. Maybe it's standing alone. Maybe it's in a wooded area with other trees or plants. And just become aware of the terrain, aware of where the tree is. And as you come closer to the tree, you know it is your special tree. You can feel it, the bark, the fragrance of the sap or the flowers, touch it and smell it. And in a moment, you find yourself connecting with the tree. It's sharing its experience of the tree with you. And imagine that you have roots going deep into the earth, connecting with all the nourishment and resources that you need. A trunk which keeps you in the moment and with yourself, and branches which connect with the sky, with the consciousness beyond you. And you just feel those roots growing from the bottoms of your feet, and those branches reaching into the sky, into the air, the warmth of the sun, the breeze, and the branches are feeling flexible and free, moving effortlessly and easily. They're free, flying, and flexible. So you feel grounded, connected, rooted to the earth, and at the same time, feeling free, flexible, reaching to the sky, feeling life flowing through you from the roots, through your tree body, into the branches and leaves. You are rooted deeply and strongly. You are flexible and free. You can feel rooted and strong and flexible and free all at the same time. And what does it feel like to be there? What can you learn from the tree? And what does it have to communicate to you? Just take some time to listen and experience the tree. Bringing in whatever nourishment you need, staying with whatever that brings to mind, connecting with the sky, with your imagination, with the transcendent, calling on whatever help you need, taking just the time you need, taking it in. Maybe ask for the tree to give you something concrete and tangible, something that would remind you of this gift that you have, to connect with your roots and to connect with your wings. And then thank the tree for the gift, knowing that you can return to this place any time of the day or night. You can connect with this tree or any other tree anytime you wish. And once again, you become aware of walking the path away from the tree, back to the place of this moment, aware of the sounds around, your body in contact with what you're sitting on. Experience your body, what you're aware of. Do you feel any differently than you did before this journey? And just remember how you feel, recalling this sense of balance, relaxation, being rooted, feeling flexible and free any time of the night or day. So just take some time to come back into this space, being with yourself, and bringing back what you need for yourself into this time and place. Okay. All right. So it's just a little reminder. It's a simple, easy one to remind yourself of roots and wings, right? So I'm sure some of you have a favorite tree, favorite place, right? Where you can remind yourself, right, of all of your resources as you work through these daily things that we all have to contend with, right? Okay, I think we're ready for the song, Kyle.
Thank you, Dr. Dude. That was a wonderful message that you gave to us with Roots and Wings. And I know that it will leave me with some thoughts about what are my roots and what are my wings. So thank you very much for that.